Okay, we're back. I did want to check if I had any vector images, and unfortunately, I don't have any on this computer that are capable of looking at them on this computer. Um, the Hartnell laptop is rather limited, but there are things like EPF files. I do have some WMF files that are vector graphics, but depending on how they're put together, they might still pixelate when you make them bigger. If that doesn't make sense to you, don't worry about it. But you could look up raster, R-A-S-T-E-R, versus vector, V-E-C-T-O-R. And you search Google on raster versus vector, and you'll see what I'm talking about with raster being pictures made of dots, and vector being pictures mathematically described, so you can make them any size, even a full billboard on the freeway, and they won't have pixelation or the dots. You won't see the dots. All right, next, resize and rotate. Again, we talked about that, adding text. Yellow diamonds can change the shape of an image. Again, you can look at what this looks like versus what this picture looks like. I'm not going to go into showing you an example of that. Play with shapes. Again, this is shapes. This is not a picture. You can't internally change the shape of an internal element of a picture in PowerPoint. You can if you know what you're doing in Photoshop. Not so easy, but it's not that difficult. People do it all the time when they're trying to, modify a photo. So, quick, shed 15 pounds in your photo without doing all the hard work. Photoshop lets you do those kinds of things. But what we're talking about here are shapes, internal shapes that are part of the PowerPoint's tools. Now new, this is 2013, combining shapes into a single seamless shape. Maybe that matters, maybe that doesn't. Again, if I'm going to play around with stuff like this, I'll probably open up a graphics program and make my own graphic in a program that's designed to do just that. Although, PowerPoint does have some really nice features to join or combine create a union of different shape elements. And the nice thing about that is if I have individual shapes, I've got to worry about layering and resizing. They're all individual. I got to do them all individually. If I've combined them, then I can manipulate them as a whole. Animation and transitions. So there are ways that you can have the animation to fade in and fade out, for example. So my current slide will fade out as the new slide fades in, and you can tweak it. How long does that last? Is it a really quick fade out, or is it a really slow fade out? Is it going to fade all the way to black, or they kind of overlap, fading across each other? Again, there's lots of things you can do in changing the timing. Just don't play around too much with this. You can even build in timing so that you don't have to worry about forwarding a slide. It'll automatically move based on a pre-planned time. You hit start on that presentation and it just goes all by itself. And you just stand there and talk about it. Even if you need to, maybe you narrate it over the top and turn it into literally a slideshow video. But if you're doing it live, I'm a little nervous about that because there's always something that happens where you think of something, somebody asks a question, and if it's on timer, then you have to pause, you have to stop. And I've seen too many glitches with using timing that I'm not one who is a big fan of it, although some people like it. So again, how it's going to work, fly in, the slide literally flies in from the top or slides from the bottom or flies in from the side, however you want to do it. Again, they're cutesy. When these first started happening, a lot of people started using them. They got old real fast. So be careful. Use animations sparingly. And if you do use animations, make sure that it matches what you're doing, that you're not just having fun showing off your ability to do multiple tools in PowerPoint. You are actually doing something meaningful that maybe is relevant to the content and or the mood. It doesn't have to be relevant to the content, but at least the mood. Sound effects, you can add any kind of sound effect you want. Again, make sure you know what you're doing. Whatever venue, wherever you're going to present this PowerPoint needs an appropriate speaker setup. In some rooms, you're going to blast the heck out of the people near the speakers, and people who are away from the speakers can barely hear it. In other rooms, it works great. Again, be careful. Know where you're going to be presenting and what the situation is like before you count on sound effects. And that is all of the different things. And I'm not showing you sound effects and examples and animation examples, because I want you to play with them on your own. And I don't want to encourage too much of it. Play around with it, use them sparingly, and they can be useful. Some that don't cause a problem, in my opinion, a relatively fast fade, not too fast where it's jerky or anything, but a relatively fast fade out, fade in of the next slide. You can consistently use that. And I think that's so soft and subtle. It kind of takes the hard edges off clicking to the next slide. It just softens the transition without being cutesy with the animations. That's just my hint. If you're gonna do it, something simple that is not terribly distracting and not really there for entertainment value, just there to soften the edges of your transitions. So that's it for this PowerPoint.